Hello whiskey fans, how you doing? Welcome back. Today we've got a whiskey with an EY that I've kind of flip-flopped and been sort of unsure whether I should bother to do a video about this or not. And that's not because it's bad whiskey, actually. This is Jack Daniel's Master Distiller series, and it's actually limited edition number 6, which is for Jimmy Bedford. To be perfectly honest, I don't know who Jimmy Bedford is. I imagine that he's a previous master distiller at the Jack Daniel's Whisky Company, and it's good that they're honouring their staff and the people that have been important in guiding the company throughout the years. It's kind of like what Bruichladdich do with their sort of single cask, I think they're distillery only releases that have the sort of pictures and names of their staff and workers on the label, so it's good. But the reason why I have changed my mind several times as to whether this is worth reviewing or not is because of this stuff. Now, this is a whiskey that I actually recorded the video for a long time, and I've only just got around to editing it and releasing it. This is Jack Daniel's Legacy Edition number 3. So these are both whiskies that we get in the supermarkets here in the UK. They're both Jack Daniel's. They're both at 43% ABV. So that's a big step up from the bog standard bare minimum legal strength of 40% that we get the old number 7 now. And I really like this stuff. I'm not going to make any apologies about that admission. I think that the old number 7 is not worth buying. I think that the strength is too low, and that makes it too bitter, too thin. It's just lacking in body. It's great if you like it, and millions do, obviously. In terms of numbers of buyers, myself and a lot of whiskey aficionados are in the minority for not liking it because it's a world famous brand. But in my opinion, the old number 7 is not a whiskey drinker's whiskey. Whereas this stuff, 43%, I imagine they possibly put some slightly better casks into this stuff, and that extra boost on the ABV makes this a really nice and really good value everyday bourbon. So I've had a couple of bottles of this, and I've had one of the bottles of the previous, because the Legacy Edition series is basically honouring and paying a little homage to the sort of the design, the labels and bottles of yesteryear all through the history of Jack Daniel's. So this is kind of going back to sort of retro packaging, whereas this is honouring distillery stuff. But the reason why I wasn't going to bother doing this is because trying these separately, I thought they're very, very similar whiskies, to the point where I thought it's maybe just batch variation, and they are just slightly better stock, bottled at 43%, so I thought probably not really any point doing 2 reviews of 2 whiskies that are essentially the same. But saying that, I decided that I wasn't going to do the reviews, so I started drinking these with an aims to finishing them. And when I actually tried them head to head in an A-B comparison, I was actually surprised that there are some differences there. So let's go back to this one to start with. I'm going to pour myself a small measure of the Legacy Edition number 3. Do some quick tasting notes, and then we'll get to the Jimmy Bedford. So this is the Legacy Edition. So quick tasting notes, as I said, instantly recognisable as a Jack Daniel's whiskey. It's quite a sweetness on the nose, lots of sweet caramelly notes, quite a nuttiness, sort of nutty peanuts, quite biscuity. And you've also got some really nice wood spice on there. And that's really one of the main problems that I have with the old number 7. At that low strength, it dials back all of the flavours, but especially it leaves that bitterness from the wood. And that's what I think makes the Jack Daniel's old number 7 a really unbalanced and not particularly pleasant whiskey. Whereas this one, the bitterness sits with the rest of the profile and makes it really nice. Let's just have a quick sip. So again, on the palate, pretty much what you would expect from the nose. So lots of caramel sweetness, a little bit of wood spice, slight bitterness that's balanced with the sweetness. Quite a biscuitiness, getting some nice graininess in there. And I think really the only thing that really changes on the palate is you've got quite a sweet cherry note that merges in there as well. As for the finish, medium length probably, and I think this is, for the price that you can get this in the supermarkets in the UK, really good whiskey. So let's not repeat what I've done already, because I have reviewed this one before. I'm just going to dispose of this. And let's take a look at the Jack Daniel's Master Distiller Series Jimmy Bedford edition. So 43%, the same as the Legacy edition. It's a shame that I haven't got much left of these at all. Obviously, being American whiskey, there's no colouring gone into there. That is natural colour. Not actually sure what the colour is like between the two. I know what I would expect from tasting these. I would say that they are very similar, but I would say that the Jimmy Bedford Master Distillers edition is a touch lighter. It's hard to say because there's not much left in the bottle, but I would say probably a little bit lighter, which is what I expected. So this is the Master Distiller Series No6 Jimmy Bedford. So on the nose, similar, but I think it's coming through that little bit narrower. It's just that ever so slight bit narrower, simpler, more refined. So again, there's caramel, but the sweetness is toned down a touch. I think the bitterness is toned down quite a lot. Still got that biscuitiness. It's still that Jack Daniel's profile, but I would say that this Distiller's edition, if you've had it, it's closer, a little bit closer to the Gentleman Jack release from Jack Daniel's. And that one, it's different to all the other Jack Daniel's because it goes through an extra filtration, charcoal filtering process, and that really makes it a much more refined, much lighter, much more gentle whiskey. And I'd say that's really what you've got here. It's very similar to the Legacy edition, but slightly moving towards the Gentleman Jack. I'd say there's a touch more perfumey oak to the nose of this one as well. But I think, and I proved this personally, trying these without doing an A-B comparison, they're very, very similar, and they're both great value. Let's see how it tastes. Yeah, so exactly the same on the palate. It's got that trademark Jack Daniel's DNA to it. That sweet caramel, bitter, slightly bitter oak spices, biscuity, bit of peanut. But it's just that bit more refined. It's that bit smoother, if you like that. Obviously, smooth is a double-edged sword in whiskey circles, because on the one hand it's easy drinking, but on the other hand it's a lack of flavour compared to the opposite. But I would definitely say that the Master Distiller Series, at least the No6 edition, is that bit more refined and smoother. On the palate, as per the nose, there is that touch more sort of perfumey, polished wood note than you get in the Legacy edition. Out of the two, I would personally go with the Legacy edition number 3 every time, because I think it's just got that little bit more oomph, but there's really not much between the two. I'd say that they are very similar whiskies, both 43%. They're both basically a drinking person's alternative to the old number 7. It's a proper drinking strength, proper quality, but still good value Jack Daniel's for people that really appreciate their whiskey and want to taste it rather than just sling it into a mixer. So hopefully I've kept this fairly brief. I'd love to hear what you guys think about these whiskies, these special edition Jack Daniel's. I don't know if these are available at a good price worldwide. Here in the UK you can get these in the supermarket for not much more than £20, especially when they're on offer. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, if you've tried any of these special releases, how you think they compare to the old number 7 and the single barrel. Me personally, I think this one, as I said in my previous video, it's not as good as the single barrel, but for the reduction in price, it's not that far off. But I'd love to hear what you guys think of these compared to the old number 7, the Gentleman Jack, the single barrel, and especially what you think of them compared to each other if you've had more than one. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Oh,